Welcome back. This is part 2 of the garden tour video. We left off with the strawberry patch, and now we'll be moving on to the rest of the beds. And hopefully we can get all of this in just one more this video and not like another one after this. So this is my squash bed, my cucurbits. It's twice as big as any of my other beds. Here on the end we've got jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. And then these two are cooking pumpkins. I think one's a Cinderella and one's a small sugar pumpkin, which those will be really good this fall for making some pumpkin pie and different things. This is a straight neck squash. I'm pretty sure that's a straight neck squash right there too. But as you can see, we've already got some female flowers that have the what will become the fruit underneath them. So when this flower opens and gets pollinated, this part will grow into the fruit. If it doesn't get pollinated, it will just fall off and die. So that's how you tell the female flowers. They have the fruit underneath them. And the male flowers are just a flower with a stem. I don't know if you can see. I'll try and stretch this one out, but it's just the flower that has a stem underneath. So that's how you tell the difference. This is a Black Beauty zucchini. Looks like that flower is going to be open later today. Their flowers are usually only open for one day. It's a male flower, so usually the male flowers come first, and then the female flowers come after. You can see there's some baby female flowers in there. That right there. So several male flowers will bloom and die, and then the female flowers will start to flower along with the male flowers so that they can be pollinated. These are grapes. There's one down there and one here, and I actually built a trellis framework. I haven't got the wires on it yet. So I'm just going to try to get those grapes to reach the top of their poles this year. And then I'll put the wires on and start training them to grow down the wire. So that'll be fun. I don't have much experience growing grapes. This is a Hubbard squash. It's a winter squash, and it gets a really big squash. It's like a big blue squash that is really good to cook. Plus it's impressive to look at. These along the edge are all nasturtium plants. Nasturtiums are an edible flower. The leaves are edible and so are the flowers. And actually, like the seeds when they're green can be used in cooking as a substitute for capers. This is a Bennings green tint squash. It gets a small, like whitish green patty pan type squash on it, and it's really good cooked. These two, this one and this one, are mystery squash. I either didn't label them in the greenhouse or their labels fell off, so I don't know what they are. They're a surprise. This one's got a vine, so you know it's some kind of a pumpkin. And then this one looks like it's probably a zucchini, but we'll see when it gets more flowers and fruits. Here in the middle I've got some Jack B. Little decorative pumpkins, and that right there is a butternut squash. You can tell because it kind of has like a variegated leaf. That's what the butternuts look like. And let's see, what else did I plant in there? I can't remember. I've got some spaghetti squash, some acorn squash, all different types. Let's see. And this are white pumpkins. They're called Lumina. You can see the male flowers are starting to bloom on this one. And I accidentally broke one of the little leaves yesterday when I was checking for squash bugs. So I really have a problem with squash bugs, and basically the only way to get rid of them is to just manually pick them off. They get on the undersides of the leaves and you just pick them off and squish them. And if you find eggs, you've got to pull them off and throw them away so they don't hatch. This is, I think, let's see. Yeah, this is the one we saw from the other side of the bed, the Cinderella pumpkin. And then that's one we saw from the other side of the bed too, just the jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. This is my daughter Janelle's own little garden that she planted. It's just radishes and some lettuce. But she's really proud of it. It hardly gets any water. And it's not planted in the right place, but she's only 8 years old. She's just learning. And she's actually doing a decent job of taking care of it. She waters it herself, so she's doing good. This is one of my legume beds. It's got arugula in the back and some pole beans. Climbing up the bean teepee, you can see there's one that's starting to climb. And these purple beans are a bush bean that has a purple flower, and the bean pods themselves actually get purple too. I don't have any bean pods on it yet, but they'll be there soon. That's one thing about beans and peas and members of that family is once you get flowers, you're going to have fruit. Not fruit, seed pods really soon after. And those are a yellow wax bean in the front. We've got some bare spots in this bed. I don't know why we didn't have the best germination. If it was just too early when I planted, or if this bed's on too much of a slope. I'm not sure. I replanted. You can see, like, there's a baby that's coming up. But even with the replanting to fill in the spaces, I just haven't had that great of germination on this bed. So there's some more Jelly jump ups that I got from my neighbor. And 2 little baby daylilies. And this is a plant that I dug up and planted in here from one of my other gardens. It was just too short, and the other plants were overgrowing it and killing it, so I divided up the root and spread it into a few different places. This is Monarda, and this is one of my very favorite flowers. This one is actually purple, and then underneath it is some lamb's ear, which I have a huge lamb's ear plant in my other herb garden, and it went to seed and just threw out like tens of thousands of seeds. So I have little baby lambs ear growing everywhere in that garden. And that's a volunteer dill. See, I'll go to the greenhouse garden next since we're right here. This is my little greenhouse garden. Really, really pretty. It's one of my favorite places in the garden. And back here on the back side, this is the west side, so and they're short so they won't like shadow the greenhouse and make it so it doesn't get warm enough in the spring. Well, these won't even survive over winter. They're gladiolus. So I'll have to dig up the corms and save them if I want to replant them next year. That's a sunflower. Those are volunteers off of a sunflower I planted last year. And all these little pots are just different things that I had in the greenhouse, and it got too hot, so I had to bring them out. Looks like we've got some dill, some marigolds, some cucumbers, probably some cantaloupe, maybe some watermelon, some chicory. Let's see, this is one of the flowers that's planted in the ground. All these ones that are really big and healthy looking are just in the garden themselves. They're not in pots. This is a foxglove, also known as digitalis, and it's one of my favorite flowers. They're really pretty. These are actually poisonous if they're ingested, so you have to use some caution, but they're nothing to be afraid of. They actually make medication out of them for heart patients. There's some catnip back there that I'm hiding from my cats because they ate my other catnip plants that were planted in the garden. And we've got some purple and yellow violas, some yellow with purple edge violas, and I love violas because they have such a sweet scent. They're one of my favorites too. Here's another different color foxglove. This one's like a peach color. Really pretty. And some more little herbs and stuff. Some of them are not doing too good. Some of them have died just because it's too hot and they're not planted in the ground. These don't hold enough water to be out here like that. That's a Dusseldorf's Pride Thrift, the pink flower. Really cute. Back there is a baby digitalis that I grew from seed. I grew probably a dozen digitalis from seed last year, but only one survived the rabbits and people stepping on it and stuff like that. So back here in these containers, there's nothing growing right now, but I'm trying to grow a passion flower vine, which also gets passion flower fruit. Those seeds are really hard to germinate. It's really hard to break the dormancy. So I've heard that they can take even up to 2 years to germinate. So I just water them every day and leave them there, and hopefully someday they sprout. We'll see. This flower is one of my very favorite flowers. This is called an angel tiger eye viola, and if you look at the face of the flower, you can see why it's called tiger eye. It's striped and then the 2 little black dots look like the eyes. This flower has such an amazingly, just intoxicatingly sweet smell. It is just incredible. I wish I could post the scent for all of you to smell. It's really something. So that's one of my favorites. And I've got just more little containers that aren't planted. Some more marigolds, some baby celery, some baby tobacco. I've got a cutting I took off of one of my elderberry plants back there, and it's surprisingly doing pretty well. It was just a branch that got broken actually off of one of the plants, so I trimmed it up and stuck it in the dirt, and it really wilted, and I thought it was dead, but now it's come back to life. Another foxglove. This one's really pretty. It's like the dark pinkish purple. And like I said, even though these flowers are toxic, a surprising amount of flowers that are really common in landscaping and houseplants are poisonous or toxic as well. So they don't pose a danger as long as you're knowledgeable about them. And like, I have 2 small children, and they can identify poisonous plants better than probably most adults. When we go to nurseries and out on walks, or even back here in the garden, they know right away. Anytime we have somebody come over and walk back in the garden, my kids are the first to point out that these plants are poisonous. I think they like telling people that. So down here, this little kind of whitish green one, this is a dead nettle. They call it a dead nettle because it doesn't have a sting, and it gets really cute pink flowers. I don't have any flowers on it right now, but it's kind of a cute little ground cover. This is a Monarda. This one came from a nursery. It's a pink one. I was hoping it would be red, but one of my favorite flowers. You can use the leaves. It has an amazing scent. It kind of smells like basil. It's got a lot of oils, volatile oils, essential oils in the leaves. And you can make like a tea out of it that's really soothing. The Native Americans used to use it to make what they call Oswego tea, and I really enjoy a cup of that now and then. That's watercress in the big pot, and then the little pot is just a tiny little lavender I started from a seed. Lavender is another one that's hard to start from seed. It's hard to break dormancy to get them to germinate. This is another wisteria. It's a bigger one than the one that's on the chicken coop. So we'll come this way since the sun's now up. This is my onion and pea bed. So I've got 3 different types of onions. And actually,